it's Allie here. And if you are a health coach, a nutritional therapy practitioner, fitness instructor, or anyone who's working as a change agent with clients, I have a brand new free training available through August 31st, and it's called Get Clients Unstuck. Another tool isn't the answer. So in this training, you're going to get to the root problem of what happens when clients fall back into old patterns, because spoiler alert, it's inevitable. 2, you're going to understand how you and your client are different people in the middle of change versus when you first start. You're going to learn why traditional coaching isn't often enough for this middle of change. And this also includes what people call mindset work or cognitive behavioral therapy. And then lastly, what actually works to get clients the results they want that will last. You can find it at trucewithfood.com/certification. And this is a free sneak peek at my once a year trauma-informed Truce coaching certification, which is also open for enrollment through August 31st. All right, enjoy the episode that you're tuning into today. Welcome to Truce with Food, the podcast where we stop fighting food and start addressing the deeper story of what you suspect is going on but can't put your finger on. Because the focus on food is a waste of your precious time, resources, and life.
Instead, if we believe that habits are supportive, that their only job is to help us, then we can go back to that intrinsic motivation. We can actually design the habits we want in ways that work for us in our season and that actually do that job of helping us. So instead of seeing habits as prisons, we see them as nets.
I'm your host, Allie Shapiro, an integrated health expert with a 19-year proven track record of client success. I'm a 33-year and counting cancer survivor and creator of the research-based Truce with Food framework that came out of my own personal experience from recovering from cancer and yo-yo dieting. Because you name it, I had tried it. I also have a master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania. I'm affectionately called people's last best resort and a coach's coach as people come to me when they've tried everything and nothing's worked long-term. This show is where we quiet the noise so we can go deep to get you the results you deserve. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute personal, individual, or medical advice. Now on to the show. Hey. So we are on the cusp of my favorite season, fall, even if it's hard to believe because there's way too much humidity, as there is here in Pittsburgh. But with this kind of comes a feeling of, all right, let's get rooted. Or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, we have lots of those people. I know that you are coming upon spring. Both seasons kind of endear this fresh starts. And so I'm so excited today to have Monica Packer on about her brand new book out called Sticky Habits. So Monica is a recovering perfectionist who really figured out that the truest model to lasting change is that you have to be practical. And her book is all about how most habit change is written for and by men or people who don't really have unpredictable schedules, who aren't doing the lion's share of caregiving, caretaking. So I was so excited when I had the opportunity to interview her about her book, Sticky Habits, because it is really completely in line with everything that we talk about here in Truce with Food. So I had her on today about how to talk about starting new habits, changing habits. And we really drilled down into this idea of consistency, because at the end of the day, consistency is important for whatever change you want to make, for your health, for any health goals, but also for any life goals. And so we really got into how to think about it in a completely different way today. And one of my favorite quotes from the episode was when Monica said, most of us have learned perfectionism, not habit change. So you understand what she means there. So enjoy today's episode. Just a little bit about Monica. She's a writer, podcaster, and certified coach, and she guides women to sustainable growth by choosing progress over perfection. She was a former middle school teacher. Teachers, my parents were both teachers. I have such a warm place in my heart for teachers. But she launched her About Progress community in 2016 after her own rock bottom around being all or nothing. And she talks about that today. And what began as a personal experience really became a decades-long movement that has transformed thousands of women's lives. You know, I love people who actually have the training, but then also the personal experience, because I think you need both to really understand what success looks like in what you're teaching. She has a top-rated podcast about progress, so check that out if you're interested. And she's really about identity, habits, and personal fulfillment, the same way that Truce with Food is all about that. She's also a mom of 5. She is a sourdough obsessor, self-proclaimed, and a beginning gardener. And she lives in Salt Lake City with her husband and 5 children. Ooh! So I think if anyone's going to teach us about how to make time for habit change, it's a mom of 5. And, you know, one of the things that Monica and I talk about in the episode is being all or nothing. And I just want to emphasize again that all or nothing is the starting developmental place we all start out as adults. So if you feel like you're all or nothing with food, exercise, or any of the health habits you want to change, really understand that is a stage of change and development. And if you're interested in where you are in that stage of development and ability to change, check out my new food stage finder. Well, relatively new this year. What is time anyways? And you can find that assessment. It's not really like an assessment. It's a meteor quiz at trucewithfood.com/find your food stage. Because once you know where you are in your development stage, then you can do the right work at the right time. So check that out, especially if you're revisiting some of those health habits you want to change. And enjoy today's episode. And please go out and get Monica's book. I so enjoyed it. And all the links to how to do that are in the show notes. All right, over and out. Monica, I'm so excited to have you here today. I don't often meet people who are looking at their work through cultural conditioning, especially habit change. So I know listeners are in for a treat because these are the kind of conversations we love to have on Truce with Food.
Well, I love that we can just go there. You know, we don't need to soften it. We can just go there and talk about it today.
Yeah. So I love your book. I recommend it. Everybody, her book is Sticky Habits. And by the time that this interview will go live actually next week, so you can pre-order it, definitely recommend it. And
Thank you.
Open up the book before you get immediately into what we should do, right? Mm-hmm. I just loved you open up with deconstructing essentially why those of us who are women or who have a ton of caretaking responsibilities might think that we've failed at change before. Mm-hmm. And I love that you talk about women, you know, habit change wasn't built for women. And you say, this like just stuck with me. You say, we have the same ability, but not the same opportunity. Yeah. So talk to us about this. Mm-hmm. I know it's so big, but please.
It is so big. And this is one of the reasons why, 3 chapters is devoted to it, because I think women really need to understand that they've been pursuing this work of trying to better themselves and develop routines and systems and habits that help them do that. But they've been doing so with 2 hands tied behind their back. Everything I teach, I try to go both deep and personal. And I think if we just dive right into the tactile on how to do habits differently, then we're missing this deeper understanding of why. And it really matters, especially for women, because we have been in this place of labeling ourselves as failures because we aren't able to maintain the ideal habits we want perfectly for the rest of our lives. And sometimes that's even just for a few days. We can't even maintain a habit for a few days, right? And because of that, we don't just fail at our habits. We adopt this identity as a failure. And that's why it's so important to me that women really understand the why, so they can stop blaming themselves and they can start doing things differently in just a few ways. And then with that, not just change their habits and how their day-to-day lives look, but also the way they see themselves, which I think is the missing part of any habit formation method, just how essential it is the way we see ourselves. But the nutshell about women is our lives are different from men. And in many ways, when I say that, there can be people who get really angry because they think, well, that's too feminist to say. Like, why do we have to blame men for everything? And then other people can say, like, that's not feminist enough. Like, I'm just as capable as a man. But when you look at the actual reality of our day-to-day lives, this transcends politics, religion, where you live, your race, everything it transcends, that women carry the high majority of invisible labor. And these are the tasks that are required to run any institution. It's mental, emotional, physical labor required to run homes, your schools, your churches, even your workplaces. And it's important work, but it's very often and easily undervalued by society. It's incredibly unseen. 2/3 of the work we do is unseen. It's internal, and it's unpaid or not paid at all, or underpaid if it is paid. And this is what we carry as women. And it literally affects our day-to-day lives. It affects the time we have. We have markedly less time than our male counterparts. And this is in the most evolved of societies you would think of. In America, women have 4 hours of work that they do within the home on average a day, while their male counterparts are 2 hours a day. And again, this is an average. So you don't have to automatically think, well, stay-at-home moms, of course, are going to do more at home. No, this is the average of like people, if they have kids in the home or don't, and the woman works outside of the home or doesn't, and same with their male counterparts. And in India, just for reference, that ratio is 6-1. So it can, be different in different societies, but regardless, women have less time. We are doing more in that less amount of time too, which means we are going to have less energy, which I believe is another word for willpower and self-discipline and grit and determination. It actually just is energy. That's the word. We have less of it. And this is again a research back thing. And this is a biggie that people don't often pause to think about, but we have far less predictability than our male counterparts, which means we get interrupted more. We can't have as dependable as a schedule. We don't often have our days go according to plan. And I would actually say very rarely will a day go according to plan for women, especially. And so because of that, we are, again, working with two hands tied behind our back, because the habit formation methods that are the most popular out there are written and designed and taught and even sold by men. And their lives are different, but they are teaching methods where they are teaching with a dependable amount of energy in mind, a predictable amount of time and scheduling, and they're very reliant on willpower and discipline. All these things that we have either different amounts of or far less of. So that's why we have to do habits differently. And things do need to change, when we start that within our own home, in terms of valuing every person's contribution and better recognizing it and contributing to it, especially with the home labor. But societally wide, that's going to be a long game. And women deserve help right now. So that's why we're going to do habits differently now and do the work to help other things change with that long road ahead of us.
I love that your book is so well researched. And I was laughing at some point. You're like, wow, isn't this such a fun book?
Yeah.
Kind of when you see
aren't we all depressed now? And should we just give up?
How much we're up against.
Yes.
But you're like, no, women show up. And to me, this doesn't seem anti-feminist at all. It's like, look at all we are doing despite having two hands
incredible
behind your back, but we have to be with what's real. And the other thing that, as you were talking and you and I both are like, okay, why does it make sense that we feel in your domain that we failed from habits? And me, it's like, why does it make sense that we turn to food? Like why, instead of this being pathologized. And when you were saying we have to understand why, it helps us start to see ourselves, I think, in such a sense of wholeness, because what you just outlined is so invisible. So if you don't see that, oh my God, I am doing the best with these very real barriers. When things go wrong, the default is I've failed instead of my approach has failed.
That's right.
because
right
no
to
one's
self-blame.
acknowledging or valuing all of that invisible labor.
And you know what's funny about this, Allie, is invisible labor is often invisible to us.
Yes.
We don't
Yes.
even fully comprehend how much we are planning, how much we are caring, how much we are doing, because we've always just done it. And if you think about, I went on my first trip ever by myself last fall, and it was a wonderful trip. And it was a solo trip. So I left my family for 8 days. And the amount of work that it took me to even go on this trip to prep what would my family would need to do at home without me was very illuminating. It's good for women to just think about, like, if someone were to replace me in a day, how long would my instructions booklet be? I mean, mine turned into a manual of who needs to be where, when, and how, what their preferences are, what our schedule is, and just all those inner workings that we don't even comprehend or even see ourselves. It's quite illuminating when you're trying to give that to someone else to shoulder for a few days or longer, in my case.
Yeah.
I have a very capable husband too, just so everyone knows. Like, when I leave him, he's got it. But if he's coming with me, that's a whole other ball game. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, my husband is very supportive, and I would say we're probably very close, more close than most couples of being, parity around, and yet still, like,
It's so
he's not
different.
super social. So it's like, my son's like social coordinator. I'm the one signing up for, and
That's
then
a
he's
lot
like,
right
why am I
there.
not getting the emails from camp? And I'm like, because I registered. Well, how can I get the emails? It's like, the person who has to own the task ends up just doing so much more, even if someone is trying to help. So I just love that you opened it up, and it also got me thinking, because one of the people that I think you call them great men with good ideas or something like that. But one of them, their book has been on the New York Times bestseller list for like years. And it just makes me think too about the unearned authority that men get as well around these habits. Like, of course, a couple years ago, I did a whole podcast season on like midlife menopause, and I was researching hormone replacement therapy to just, I knew who I wanted to have on. It was going to be a woman, of course, but I was like, I like to learn from all different sources. And I Googled HRT, and the top video was Andrew Huberman and Peter Attia talking about HRT. And I was like, Huberman doesn't even see patients, and it's like, no, but it was just like, even women are doing this, right? Obviously, like,
and neither does Peter Attia, for
right. And a lot has come out on him since then.
Yeah.
But it's not them. It's the system of, oh my God, men are the leading authorities in habit change, in wellness, all of this stuff, because we think they know, but really often they just have more resources and time.
Yeah. And wives. And again, I don't say that to like discredit them. There is so much good. And that's what I seek to do. It's not to like grab our pitchforks and we ride at dawn. It's like, let's take what is actually good and can work for us, and let's fill in these gaps, because there are gaps. And that's the whole wife thing. I mean, that's one of my big gripes, I guess, about the online business world, is so much of what you see in marketing and with habit and with self-help, wellness industry and the business industry. It's a lot of male-centered leaders in many ways, because they do have the predictability, time, and energy, because they have the support from their wives, which shouldn't be discounted in terms of like discrediting them or their wives for what they're doing to support each other. But it is, again, like let's see it for how it is. This is not the same. I mean, I recently saw, and this isn't a personal attack, I love a lot of what his book is, Atomic Habits, James Clear. He talked about, here's my morning routine. And I can tell you that routine is only possible because he has a wife who's maintaining so much of the home and the children. And he's spent a lot of time with his family, which is rare. He eats breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. He spends time with them, but he can get up at a certain hour. He can do his deep work. He can do his workout and his meditation, because there's someone else who is managing all the other pieces that are important too.
Well, and that's what I loved about your book. My work is rooted in development. And ultimately, part of the work I'm trying to get people out of is binary thinking, whether it's either or, black or white, all or nothing. And your book was very much, let's hold the and, which is what so much of my work is about. Is like, okay, let's see what these do well. Doesn't mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly.
It means how can we build upon this when you need more flexible circumstances?
That's
and
right.
I just love, and you even mentioned heroine's journey, which actually my Truce with Food methodology is rooted in. Like I literally wrote my master's thesis on that. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I think when people can hear this, sometimes they think, oh, well, then there's going to be no structure. And what you're really advocating for is flexible structure, which I think is the sweet spot of holding both. We need structure and we need some flexibility because
That's right.
yes. So what I would love to do, because again, our work does overlap, but it's also, I just love, you gave so much specifics, is tackle this. One of the whole book is amazing. And one of the things that you get into is around consistency. And this is something that I have a program dedicated to it.
Oh yeah.
And you talked about a lot of people come to you trying to get help with exercise. So I thought maybe we can talk about the brilliant thing you outlined around consistency because, and you and I both had sleep challenges. So there's a lot that we can talk about this topic. So I want to dive deeper into consistency and that foundation of your habit change of sticky habits. It's not the whole thing, but it's a central piece. And one of the things that I've talked about on this podcast or in emails is this assumption that consistency is this rigid, you do the same thing, the same time every day. Or like, if I'm going to work out 3 days a week, it has to be,
it's all or nothing.
It's all or nothing. And so I talk a lot about showing up with the C+ effort. And I loved your definition of consistency where you said doing your best most of the time over time. So can you speak to that? I just think it's so soft, but also you call gentle diligence, which I just love. So,
well, thank you for knowing my work and for reading it. It makes a huge difference to be able to show up and like have a real conversation about it. Consistency is one of these things I think both illustrates where we get misled as women and also what we can tweak to make it work for us, because habits do still live and die by consistency. That is what makes a habit is its consistency, right? But the way it's been taught to us is that to have a habit, you decide what your habit's going to be and you start Monday. And then you do that habit for 21, 28, 30 days. And then you have the habit. Where they're trying to teach consistency, right? But what they're missing is what they're actually teaching is perfection.
Yes.
But again, you do it in the same way, at the same time of day, day after day, without missing a beat. How many of us have done a habit challenge online where we've gotten to day 19 of 21, and our kid gets sick or baseball season starts or we start our period? Like hormones alone is a huge factor why we have to do habits differently and our energy is different. And we can't do the exact same ideal version of our habit at the exact same time. And we get caught in the all or nothing trap, which most often leads us to nothing, that all or nothing setup. And so because of that, we lose our consistency, we lose the habit. So instead of just saying, well, why try? Like going into this like apathetic place of just like laying down and just being, I don't know, a slug. We have to take what is good and right about that. Yes, habits do still live and die by consistency. We deserve support consistently from our habits. So how do we do this differently then? We redefine consistency. Instead of it being about perfection, consistency is doing your best most of the time, over time. And I'm going to break those 3 parts down. Doing your best. A lot of people automatically think my best has to be perfect. That is not true. And this is a big part of how we have to do habits differently. We have to learn to actually listen to ourselves and trust ourselves. What is my actual best for this season or for this day or for this hour? And trust yourself. And the more you do that, the more you'll believe yourself. You'll know when to push yourself. You'll know when to go with the lowest thing or to go somewhere in the middle. So your best is allowed to change day to day, season to season. So that's the first part.
I want to just interrupt you there
Yes.
for a second and just give a really tangible example. I think I'm in menopause. A lot of people listening to this are going through it. And what you learn is you lose those stress hormones, because you mentioned hormones, is like recovery is where all your gains come in. And so if you are still, people come to you, oh, what I used to do no longer works. It's like, because you're stressing your system out. But what you said there is so important, is we have to learn to trust ourselves and tune inwards, because even today, I felt like I needed a recovery day. So I just walked. And it's like, I have done enough work to know, oh, this counts. But if you're not listening to your body, you think I'm failing. So I just wanted to,
I can't do what I thought my habit should look like. So therefore I'm failing. So no, your best is allowed to change. And we're going to talk about what that will look like with a habit specifically. Okay.
Yeah.
Most of the time, your target for consistency is not 10 out of 10. It's 6 out of 10, especially in the beginning. Gradually, it will, the more that you're able to even maintain most of the time, that most of the time will increase to 7, 8, 9 times out of 10. You're able to do this habit. Okay. And then over time, you are playing the long game with habit formation. It is not like a 21, 28, 30-day thing. Actually, it can be both shorter than people think, installing a habit, but mostly you're playing the long game in terms of having the ideal habit you want most of the time. So let's go back to the first principle where I said your best. So in order for us to be consistent, we have to be flexible. Consistency and flexibility are complementary ideals. They're not competing. Flexibility makes consistency possible. And how that works with habits is, instead of only having one version of our habit that counts, the ideal version, we have what I call a baseline. And that is the smallest and simplest version that you can do on your less than ideal day or your worst kind of day. And I'm not talking about the literal worst. If like someone dies or like you get a terrible diagnosis, like everyone gets a pass on everything. Like, yeah, but we're talking about a normal kind of day, right? So that's where you have a baseline that has that built-in flexibility that creates consistency over time. So with exercise, if you know your ideal is you want to do a 60-minute walk every day, what is your baseline version of this? For those who already do some kind of walking, maybe their baseline is going to be like 30 minutes. Even on a bad day, I can get in a 30-minute walk or a 2-mile walk. Like they could have a distancing. But for someone who isn't consistently walking yet, that's going to be a lot smaller and simpler, and that's okay. It could be a 10-minute walk, a walk around the block. And a lot of people automatically are like, but that's not the habit I want. And that's when I have to tell you, if you want the ideal, you need baselines. Baselines build, they give you momentum. They quite naturally help you get to the more of the ideal, but more than anything, they create the consistency you need to gradually, and actually more often than you think and quicker than you think, get to that ideal in that consistent way that we defined.
Yeah. And I loved in the book, you talked about like by committing to the baseline, it's like you start to build that trust. Oh, yes. I did that. And you get energy from that. And I think you're bringing up this really great point of, earlier, like that's not consistency, that's perfection. I always tell my clients, like with exercise, everyone is starting with the end in mind instead of how do we actually get there? And
yes, they're starting with the end.
Yeah.
The ideal, right?
Yes. Instead of, I always say like phase 1 is showing up. Like if you're trying to move more, like, okay, what are you going to be able to do if you didn't sleep well? Like, it's like, or what are you going to do if like you're at work and you somehow need to remember you need clothes? And so I'm like, just take some time to show up and figure out how is this even going to happen? But I love that idea of baseline, because that all of a sudden says, I can do this. And a lot of the work I do with clients is changing the meaning making around food and exercise. So for so many of us, it is gridlocked in diet culture. So we think it doesn't count because we're connecting it to calorie burn or weight loss. But what you're talking about, when you have a baseline and you say, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, all of a sudden you get some experience of, oh, I have more energy.
Yes.
I didn't know this could give me more energy.
Even in that 10 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. And my background is in how adults change. And all of a sudden you're developing, what they say in habit world, intrinsic motivation. Like, oh, I'm not doing this because Monica told me or Allie told me or because I should, but like my walking is non-negotiable because I connect it to my energy, my sleep, and my creativity now.
Exactly.
And so people don't realize that how they feel if they start with a baseline, how they feel at baseline is going to be different how they feel over time if they keep doing that baseline.
And baselines really are the scariest thing to believe in and try, especially if you are a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist like I am. And I'm telling you, this is not just like an anecdotal, like it worked for me, so maybe it'll work for you. It's like, no, this is how it looks to create something that's going to be sustainable, which is what you actually want. You don't want a flash in the pan. You don't want 19 days out of a 30-day challenge and then never do the habit again. You want sustainability. And it really is that net you need. And this actually goes back to one of the other deep kind of things we need to talk about. And it's the way we see habits, which you just mentioned. A lot of us equate habits with chores. Yeah. Right? Or these maxims that we have to uphold in order to be a good person, or we automatically know the prescription for a certain habit we want, like exercise, right? But instead, if we believe that habits are supportive, that their only job is to help us, then we can go back to that intrinsic motivation. We can actually design the habits we want in ways that work for us in our season and that actually do that job of helping us. So instead of seeing habits as prisons, we see them as nets. They're flexible. They're allowed to kind of like mold and change. They're there to catch us when they fall. They lift us up. They support us. They're there for us. We are not doing the work to serve them. They are serving us. That's a big shift.
Yeah, I love that when you wrote that in your book of like, hey, these are not prisons. Like this is there. And it's like, oh yeah, like you helped me name like, that is why I'm so consistent with so many habits. Because when I was fighting and battling food, it was just like, I think more willpower, more judgment.
And shame, so much shame.
But it's like, I can't even be motivated by that way anymore. I'm like, I don't know if I'm too old or like, I just know this other way works so much. But when it comes from a place of care and how is this going to help me feel, more resilient today or help me sleep better and we're talking about exercise, but it could be, anything is really important. I love that you mentioned that in your book. One of the things you had mentioned about in your book, and I think about people worrying that maybe this is going to take longer. And you said, but the important thing is you're still doing it. So that you just said that before, but I wanted to name that because I think when we are coming out of perfectionism and traditional habit change, we are measuring speed because we have to white knuckle. We're like, how long can I inhale or hold my breath to do this? But I always tell clients, we're measuring momentum and are you still showing up? And when your habits are supportive or you have these baselines, you're totally shifting and measuring different things of, hey, we're still doing it. We're not worried about the time. We're worried how long it's going to take. It's the fact that you're still doing it. So I just love that you bring that out in the book too.
Well, thanks for highlighting that. And again, this speaks to the bigger fear that we have. Like, I want the ideal habit and I want it now. And the truth is many days you will be able to get the ideal. Yeah. But it's the days where your best is different or your schedule is different or you've been interrupted a billion times, that your baseline is there to give you the consistency that you still need and deserve. These baselines still matter. I mean, I had a woman who wrote to me years ago. It's one of my favorite comments I've ever gotten online. She said, Monica, I have been trying to learn how to journal for years. And I've always had the standard of a simple 20-minute journaling practice. Now, I don't love to journal. So 20 minutes of simple journaling to me isn't a simple thing. But for her, she likes to reflect and to write. And it just seemed like a simple habit. It's 20 minutes out of a 24-hour day. Why can't I stick to this? And it's because she always only had that ideal. So she was never consistent with it. But when she gave herself permission to play the long game and to start with the baseline, she said, Monica, not only am I consistent now for the first time in years with journaling, I've actually discovered my baseline of 5 minutes is mostly all I need. It's innately powerful. It is supporting me in ways I need. And I think that's a huge factor in this too, is we so easily disqualify ourselves from the support we deserve because of these like asinine prescriptions that have been passed down to us. And the truth is when you learn how to break free from this perfectionistic all or nothing cycle, and you believe that doing something not only counts, but it's worth a whole lot, you're going to be able to change so much more of your life in ways that will surprise you. A big part of why this book came to be is my own perfectionism story. I at 20 years old was the overachieving perfectionist with straight A's and doing super well in college, like with a scholarship and looked the part. And I had multiple eating disorders and really terrible mental health and got to a really, really dark place. And I paid prices for my perfectionism that people never saw, but they almost took my life. And then for 10 years after that, I was terrified because I still believed in the all or nothing model. I thought, well, the only way to change or grow was to do what I did before. And I don't ever want to do that again. So I guess I'll just stay here on the nothing side. But that was another form of perfectionism. And at 30, that's when I had that other rock bottom, another rock bottom that showed me this all or nothing pendulum swing is not making me the person I know I can be and I want to be. And that's a big departure, I think, in this method. It is not perfectionistic bound. It's actually the opposite. It's so much more based in compassion, as you said. It's more gentle. But because of that, people grow not only in sustainable ways, but eventually exponential ways. Yes. One of the cool things about the baseline is it grows too. So for that woman who she does want to have a 60-minute walk every day, but right now she walks maybe once a week. And so her baseline needs to be lower than maybe another person's baseline for exercise. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk. The great news here is that baseline will grow too. Eventually, her baseline, what she can do on her worst day is going to be 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it can grow from there. The sky is the limit. Yes. That's really it.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I always, when I tell people, even when I start my consistency program, we do a second wind exercise. So we plan for them, quote unquote, falling off. I'm like, yes, your kid is going to get sick. You're not going to show up for all the calls. Like I even designed the program to be flexible.
Exactly.
But people bring that.
Like a catch up day and week. And
But people bring the mental model of, rigid change. Yeah. And so one of the things that I talk about is, okay, I just want you to show up with the C+ effort. And
that's a great way to say that.
Yeah, relieved, but also like disgusted a little
Suspicious, I'm sure. Yeah.
But I explain to them, if you get in the practice of showing up, that doesn't become hard over time. And you'll start to realize you want to come to the calls. This is nurturing, but they realize that then that C+ effort of like just showing up, next thing they know, oh, I'm safe. This really is a safe space. I'm participating. So the C+ grows with them. And so I just love that you really outline in the book how that happens. And I think that's so important for people to realize. So
yeah, it's a scary thing to believe. I know that. I know it's a big leap for many women. And I would just say, have the courage to try anyway, then like, just try it out. And also it takes in a little bit of honesty of asking yourself, if this all or nothing model is what I truly believe in, how well is that working for me? Is sustainability a part of my life? Do I get the support I need for my habits? Or are there some gaps there? Maybe there's certain habits where it's easy for me to do the all. Then that's great. You have it. You don't need to worry. But there are certain habits for all of us where we've tried over and over and over again with these old models and we keep failing. So take that habit and try this different way and see.
Yeah. So let's go to most of the time. So we talked about doing your best, which I love as this baseline. And then you talked about most of the time. Can you talk a little bit more about what most of the time is?
I think it's just on average, are you mostly showing up?
Yeah.
And this is one of those things that I think is something that we, again, disqualify ourselves from because we think if I'm not doing it, if I want a daily habit and I'm not doing it every day, then it's not a daily habit. Well, again, you are not a robot. You are a human. One of the things I like women to know is being a habit person doesn't mean you have one habit stacked after the next, day after day, like this habit robot. The point of habits is to have a life.
Yes.
Okay. Habits are more touch points to your day. They're the important moments and a system or a routine or a habit that helps you come back home or gives you the support you need. And the rest of your day is where you live. Yeah. So with this, most of the time is part of that because living is messy. We are human and we're living, most of us, with other humans. And if we don't have other household members, we still are working with other humans. We're in community with other humans. So that means if we have the expectation that only rigid perfection in terms of pacing is what counts, we will fail all the time and every time. But instead, when we know 6 out of 10 times, if I'm showing up and trying, it counts. Again, that number is going to rise. But more than anything, the foundational part to this is you have the support you need to show up to your life as yourself. That's what matters to me more than anything. Not that you're showing up as someone that you're not, but that you are showing up as you.
Well, and I think that's so important because, and you mentioned this in the book, but we all have seasons, right? Mm-hmm. And so overtime may look different one season to the next, like versus summer when your kid's in school or when you're caretaking heavily. And this gets back to, I think sometimes people think, oh, well, if I'm in a season and I have to scale back, like I'm never going to get there. And this is where you're doing your best. What is the baseline? And so then you can fall back on that, reduce cognitive load of like thinking all of that. And it's just like, and you may even need to renegotiate your baseline in a different season.
That's
but
right.
I think that's just really important for people to realize, because I'm thinking of someone listening, they may say, oh, well, if I committed to even my baseline of, we'll just say walking 10 minutes a day, 4 times a week. And then this week, I'm thinking there was like torrential rain downpours, or then your kid is sick or whatever. It's like, okay, then what would that look like over 2 weeks? And you may think, oh, I'm so far behind. And you're saying it's like, no, but now that we have this baseline of minimal, okay, we can go for what can you get 8 out of 12 over, or 8
That's
out
right.
of 14. My math skills. I used to be really good at math, Monica.
I've never been good at math, so you're already doing better than me. Yeah, we kind of zoom out a bit, right? Like, remember the third part of this is over time. So we're playing the long game, but also most of the time can still be gentle. You're still going for an average. Some weeks are going to get 6 out of 7 days. Other days are going to get 2 out of 7.
Yeah.
But the average is what matters over time.
Yes, that is so important. And so let's talk about a little bit over time, because one of the things that I loved, and I think it was so great to be reminded this in your book, is you talked about, the civil rights effort took 70 plus years of doing the next small thing. That's what you talked about. And you said true change is incremental until it's not. And I think in our instant world, I'm even thinking about how instant everything is unrelated to the area we're working on, right? Like my son wants something, just, can you go on Amazon? I'm like, whoa, buddy. Like, do you have chore money? Do you like with this, but it's just like everything we're expecting. And we forget that like the timeless truths of life, that change is incremental. It takes time. We think those don't apply because we have social media or we have the internet, So I'm going to let you respond to that. And then I want to bring up another point that you brought up.
Sure. So that point of the book is a quote from Sharon McMahon, who wrote the book, The Small and the Mighty. And I had her on my podcast to talk about the small things we all do and how they add up. And she made that point about the civil rights movement, which I thought was really impactful to actually have a number like 70 years of incremental change. That's so crazy to think through. But so many of us, we live in an instant age. We also live in an age of certainty. Okay, certainty sells, especially in the self-help and wellness industries and business industries. Like certainty sells. It's easier to sell certainty. It's easier. I know. Like I've been trying to sell the nuanced, and it's a lot harder. I've been doing that for 10 years. Yes, it's a lot harder to sell, but I'd rather sell people the truth, right? But even as consumers, it's easier to buy the certain path. We want to know what plan A through F is going to get me the exact result I want tomorrow. And when we see that, it's appealing because there's something in us that desperately desires whatever that end product we think will give to us, right? And so hand in hand with this like instantaneous change that we want the certainty of it. And so that's why I've had many, many clients. The women who come to me are the ones who've done the all or nothing model over and over and over and over and over. And they've bought into coaching package or book after book or different program online or challenge over and over and over and over and keep quote unquote failing, right? When really they we're being sold a lie.
Yes.
I don't even think the people who sell these things, if they were be honest with themselves, would say that worked perfectly for me. A lot of what they sell is anecdotal. So there's not a lot of research or case studies on it, or even just having other people try the same model until they sell it. They're just like, it worked for me, it'll work for you. But even then, they kind of put on this glossy packaging to it, like, here's what I did and here's the results I got. When they're not showing you, here's the off day and what happened then. Here's a failure that I had. Here's a disappointment that came up for me. So, and this is true for so many things in our lives. We see these people achieve or to change. We have those feelings where we see someone do something we want and we think, I wish I could, or how do I not get there yet? And we have bought into this lie. And it's one of the many lies that perfectionism sells to us too, is we believe in this lie of overnight success. We believe in the lie of dramatic change.
Oh,
we believe in the lie.
It's rooted in
that. We believe in the lie of certainty too. Okay. We believe in the lie of arrival, that we will actually get to somewhere where we will like be done, or we'll get exactly what we want. And that time never, ever comes, ever. So we've talked about playing the longest game. As part of this, we have to change what the game even is.
Yes.
It's not this dramatic, quick change. It's incremental. It's small wins building over time. Failure is not just something that you deal with occasionally. Failure is part of the process. We expect it. We plan on it. We deal with it differently. So the path looks different, but we are different on the path too. So we are on this path doing things in a different way, but we're also doing it from a different place. Instead of shame that the certainty / perfectionistic models are driven on willpower, discipline, today's the day, like only you're in charge of your life, like get up and, just do it, like that kind of mentality. That's not how this actually looks. Persistence is expecting failure, expecting disappointments and tweaks and dramatic pivots, and can still showing up, because that when those things happen, you're not doing it wrong, you're doing it right. And one of the things I say to my clients all the time, I'll say two things. One, in the trying is the doing.
Yes.
When you're trying, you're doing. That's it. You don't have to be perfect. In the trying is the doing. And the second is, as long as you are pointed the right direction and you're trying, you're doing it right. Okay. Your road is allowed to look twisty turny. And that means you have to have a lot more compassion. You have to have a lot more grace with yourself. And a lot of people just think that means they'll become apathetic and the slugs and just not try anymore. That's actually a form of perfectionism. That is perfectionism for many people, actually. No, the reverse is true. You have a greater increase of persistence. You have more capacity, because instead of just self-blaming and checking yourself out of the game, you're in it for the long haul.
Well, and this is, your point about expecting failure, learning from it, learning from disappointment means you're doing it right. I think this is so important, why everyone go get sticky habits and really deconstruct why, again, Monica said it at the top. This podcast is all about, why do things make sense instead of why do I suck? But you are going to experience essentially failure or setbacks. And if you still think that you're doing it wrong, or there's some other perfect plan out there, you're going to make it that you've failed, that you are broken, not that the approach is broken. And so that's why it's so important to hear this and know that there isn't a perfect, safe, non-uncertain way to do habits. So I love that you name it and that you're into selling the truth too. Yeah. It's a smaller circle, but they're the best people who want to hear the truth.
It is. and I sincerely hope that this book doesn't just change the way women do habits. My deeper hope is that it changes the way they see themselves.
Yeah.
And my big audacious dream as part of that is that it begins to better change the self-help and wellness industry, that it becomes less of the certainty, prescription bound, toxic positivity place, and more of a gentle, nuanced, hey, we're human and here's how we grow for reals.
Yes. Because I think so many of us think like, if parenting is hard, or, especially being in the menopause space a lot, people now think like, if they're still having health problems or setbacks, it's like, well, I didn't eat enough protein. I didn't live perfectly. I'm like, no, bodies age like this. Right. And it's like, if you're in shame because you think this is all on me, instead of this is the human condition, you just come at it from such a different place. So
Yeah.
I just love your book. I want everyone to go get it. Is there anything about consistency or the book that I didn't ask that you feel is important to our conversation before we wrap up here?
I'm thinking through that because I feel like we've had such a powerful conversation, and you clearly know this work so well. So I appreciate you and your preparation that you put into this and your passion for your community. I'll just say this isn't something you didn't ask, but this is just something I like to always remind people who are in that dark place of thinking, I try and fail and I try and fail, so I'm a failure. And it's this fear that they can't change. And I want every woman I know, every woman who listens, every woman who reads anything I put out there to know that they can change. It is possible for every single person in the very thing that you want to change the most in. Yes, you can change. You absolutely can, without a doubt.
Oh, and Monica's book can help you get there. You need the right approach. And if you're someone with a lot of caregiving responsibilities, this is or just unpredictable schedules anymore,
Yes.
which I think is so many of us. Get the book. Where can people find the book, learn more about you? We'll link everything in the show notes, but
yeah, I'll hold it up. I just got my copies a couple of days ago, which is so exciting. So here's the cover.
Oh, I love that it has honey
it's
and
kind of
food on
shiny,
it.
which I didn't even know they were going to make that, like the honey kind of shiny in the words, which I was like, oh, welcome surprise. They can go to stickyhabitsbook.com, and habits is plural. So stickyhabitsbook.com. They can check out the pre-order bonuses we've got, which are really great. And if this is post September 8th, when it gets published, they can still go to stickyhabitsbook.com. And also they can listen to my podcast About Progress. I've been doing this now for almost 10 years. It's our 10-year anniversary this fall. So
congratulations. That is no small feat.
it is. I can't believe I've made it this far, but it's been me living out what I teach. Yeah. It's been me living it out. That's right. So yeah, join us at About Progress. That's my show, About Progress.
Yeah. And we have a lot of people who understand gender disparity here. So let's really have women be equal authority out in the world because, as Monica says in her book, we may be hamstringed, but we still show up. We still show up. And so I really hope this book gets out there, and thank you for taking time to join us.
Thank you. It honestly was an honor, especially to talk to someone who's read it. I mean, like I said, it's still new. It hasn't been published yet. So to talk to someone who's read it is like a real treat.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're rooting for you, Monica.
Thank you.
Again, all the links will be in the show notes for everyone to find the book and Monica's podcast, and probably Instagram too.
Yes. I'm everywhere About Progress. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you, Allie.